second, Judge. I'll let you know when it's already set.
Okay. My screen has a notice that we are streaming live on YouTube.
Loading right now.
Well, Yanni disappeared, so I think that means that we're safe to go. Yanni, are you giving us a go?
Getting the go-ahead from Robert, Judge.
Okay.
All right, Judge, we're live. We're good to go.
Thank you so much. Good morning, members of the jury. It's so good to see you all. Thank you for coming back. I'm glad we didn't scare you all away. Good morning, Albin. Albin, remember, is our clerk. And where's our bailiff?
Good morning, Judge.
He's off screen to give us more room on our screen. So good morning to you, Robert. I haven't said good morning to you yet. And Sharon, our court reporter, is here, and our attorneys are here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Albin, I'm going to call attendance since we are on the record with our court reporter for the first time. Members of the jury, when I call your name, please say present. Christina Gonzalez.
Present.
Julian Tellis.
Present.
Brenda Coleman.
Present.
Anna Brown.
Present.
Christian Roa.
Present.
Kelly Grossman. I see Kelly Grossman. Okay, you're muted. It's also good practice for when you have to answer a question. You just have to unmute your microphone. There you go. You're
Present.
there you go. Andrea Sullivan.
Present.
Ingrid Herrera.
Present.
Jack Balak. Wait, I'm going to get this right, Jack. Balaya.
You got it.
Balila?
Yeah, you got it. I'm present.
Okay. Okay. I'm pretty good at reading names. I do that a lot. So Celeste Hernandez?
Present.
Quiroga?
Yes, ma'am. Present.
Okay, it's 2734. Vincent Dixon? I saw you before. There you are, smiling. You have to unmute your mic. There you go. And say present. Go ahead. I want to see if we can hear you. Just say here, present.
Here, present.
Okay, you got it. Elsa Salcines?
I'm present.
Okay. Abel Valdez?
Present.
Joyce Levy?
Present.
Gotcha. Joanna Bautista?
Present.
Okay. Robert Diaz.
Present.
Gotcha. Chandra Preston.
Present.
Louis Nemec.
It's Lewis. Yeah.
It's Louis.
Yes, present.
Okay. And last but not least, Joshua Pierre.
Judge, I don't think he's here. He hasn't signed on.
That was number 57. Okay,
Yes, that's good.
okay, great. All right, members of the jury, this morning, we're going to be discussing some more substantive topics, moving away from the things that we talked about last week. But actually, before I do that, let me have the lawyers reintroduce themselves to you. We'll start with the plaintiff. Mr. Wass, if you want to just say a quick hello.
Morning, everyone. Hope you all had a great weekend. My name is Brandon Wass. I represent People's Trust Insurance in this matter. Thank you for showing this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Wass. Mr. Baldwin.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here again. My name is Matthew Baldwin, and I represent the defendants, counter plaintiffs, Mr. Porchero and Mr. Vega.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Members of the jury, as you know from last week, this is a civil trial. So a civil trial is different than a criminal case in many different ways. But very basically, a civil trial is where folks come to resolve a dispute between two parties. A criminal case is a case in which the government, the state of Florida here, would bring charges against an individual, criminal charges, and the state or the government is the plaintiff. But in civil, it's important that you understand that you can have an individual person suing an individual person. You can have a company suing an individual. You can have a company suing a company, or an individual suing a company. And what's important for you all to understand is that in a civil proceeding, an individual has the same rights and privileges as a company, and a company has the same rights and privileges as an individual. So both sides, in this case, we have a company suing two individuals, but we also have the defendant individuals, as the name implies. You have the plaintiff who brings the lawsuit. The defendant, as the name implies, defends. Our defendants here are two individuals who happen to also be counter plaintiffs, because in this lawsuit, they also countersued the company. But what I want you all to understand is that the individuals and the company has the same rights and privileges in a case. You can just kind of nod your head if you understand or if you don't understand. So does everybody understand that concept? Yes?
Yes.
Very good. Another difference that a civil trial has in a criminal case is something called the burden of proof. And the burden of proof is a fancy way of saying the level of proof that the party bringing the suit has to prove in front of the jury. In a criminal case, the government or the state has to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. It is a very high burden. And the court defines that in a criminal setting. But in a civil case, the burden of proof is called the preponderance of the evidence. It's a lower burden. And for the best way to visualize the burden of proof is if you can imagine my hands, see if I can get them on the screen, as the scales of justice, very much like what's behind Albin's head there on his seal. And preponderance of the evidence is a mere shifting of the burden. And there's no degree of shifting. So the plaintiff and counter plaintiff each have the burden to prove their case by a preponderance of the evidence. And the lawyers may explain that to you if they want a little further, but I want you all to understand that that is the burden in a civil case. Was that clear? Did you understand that? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Great. Members of the jury, during this next process of questioning, the lawyers are not trying to ask you questions to be nosy or pry into your personal life. What the lawyers are looking for is people who can fairly and without any bias or prejudice judge this case based on the law and the facts. So you may not know this, but as jurors, you are judges. You are judges of the evidence, of the facts. I am the judge of the law. So you don't have to come in here with any mad legal skills. I'm going to give you the law that applies in this case, and you will each have your own packet of the law, and the law that applies is written out so that lay people can work with it, understand it, and apply it. So do you all promise me that you will follow the law that I give you, even if you don't agree with it? That's what's key here for justice to work. Does anybody here feel that they cannot do that? Okay, sounds good. Members of the jury, you must not decide this case based on sympathy because you feel sorry for someone or because of some prejudice, because you are biased against someone. Again, the case must be decided on the law and the evidence. Does everyone understand that? Yeah? Okay. And almost lastly, this is important. Members of the jury, tomorrow you're going to hear an opening statement, and then you're going to start hearing the evidence from the plaintiff's side. You must not form a fixed opinion about this case until you hear all the evidence and the law that applies to the evidence, and you've had an opportunity to deliberate with your fellow jurors in the jury room. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you form a fixed opinion before you've heard all the evidence, that wouldn't be fair. If you formed a fixed opinion before you hear the law that I'm going to give you how to apply the evidence to the law, well, that wouldn't be right. And if you form a fixed opinion before you have a chance to deliberate with the other jurors, well, then that's not justice. What's the point of having a jury if you're not going to collaborate and discuss the law and the evidence with each other? So please do not form a fixed opinion until the end of the case and you've received the law and you're in the jury room. Can you all do that? Okay. Members of the jury, during breaks, especially when we're in the building, you must not discuss the case. You can talk about your lives, you can become friends. Oftentimes jurors do become friends and they stay in touch, but you can talk about us, but you can't talk about the evidence, okay? So it's very, very important until it's your time to deliberate. And Mr. Wass, I had asked you to coordinate with Mr. Baldwin and read a list of the people who may testify in this case. Members of the jury, listen carefully. Mr. Wass is going to read a list of people that may testify in this case. I want to know if you happen to know any of these people. Go ahead, Mr. Wass.
Thank you. For People's Trust in this case, you will hear from witnesses Alex Herrard and Ariel Molinet. And for the homeowners, you will hear from Ms. Corchero, Yusim Corchero, and Michael Oliveira.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to turn you over to the lawyers now, and I'm going to ask you to please give them your attention. to answer their questions to the best of your ability. There's no wrong answers during this process, only truthful answers. And Mr. Dixon, you have your hand up. What would you like to say, sir? Oh, you have to unmute your microphone. Although I'm getting really good at reading lips during this Zoom world. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a concern here, with regards to my age and my underlying condition. I'm really, concerned about that.
Okay. We talked about that last week. Were you thinking about it some more over the weekend?
Yes, I was, and I've spoken to my family, and they say I should let you know about it.
All right. And are you employed?
No.
You're okay. You're retired. Let me look at your questionnaire. You're juror number 34. What did you do before you retired?
I was a bank examiner with the state of Florida.
Okay. During the pandemic, what type of social activities have you been doing?
Nothing really. I've been staying home because I'm scared.
Do you live with anyone?
No, I live by myself.
Well,
and my whole family's in New York, so I'm down here by myself.
Yes, definitely. I definitely understand your concern. So last week I described the process of moving into the building in downtown Miami. And I'm sure Judge Bailey went over it with you guys again, but let me explain and see if this makes you feel better about participating. So we're going to be trying the case in the family building, which is a newer building than the civil courthouse, where you may have heard is an older building and has some, the air conditioning system is not as new, and et cetera, et cetera. We also have secured parking in the building for the jurors. So if you are going to drive to the courthouse, all you have to do is go up a ramp. There's designated parking for you. We're going to be socially distancing in the elevator, no more than 2 people, 6 feet apart. Masks will be worn at all times. Everybody's temperature will be taken. Screening questions will be asked. And social distancing of 6 feet apart or more throughout the entire process. Lunch will be provided. The jurors will all be escorted to areas that we have designated where you can have your lunch socially distanced apart. Knowing all those provisions, you will each have your own packet of jury instructions and a notebook for you to look at any evidence. So nothing will be passed around. We've tried to think about everything. So knowing all that, do you think that you would be able to serve even though you have a concern?
I am still very concerned with my underlying conditions.
Is that something that you can tell me? You feel free to tell me now what your conditions are? Go ahead.
Are you the only person hearing?
No. So if you want to talk about it in private, we could go in private.
Yes, private, please.
Okay. All right. If you were to be selected to be on the jury, do you think that your concern for your health would affect your ability to concentrate in the case?
I really don't know, because I'll be thinking about me being there and my underlying condition. That I'll always be thinking about, especially with what I see and hear up to this morning with the cases in Florida. I want to isolate myself as best as possible from everybody.
And how old are you, sir?
68 and a half.
68 and a half. Okay. 68
yeah,
and a
my
half.
birthday's in December. I'll be 69 in December.
Okay, sir. Okay, very well. Thank you so much for letting me know your concerns. I appreciate that. And we'll if we need to, we'll discuss your medical condition in private. But for
Sure.
now, what I'm gonna turn the questioning over to the lawyers, and we'll continue on with our jury selection. Mr. Wass.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a great weekend, and I hope each and every one of you, your friends and family, are all staying safe in these unprecedented times. As I stated before, my name is Brandon Wass, and I'm here on behalf of People's Trust Insurance in this case. It's an honor and privilege to represent them in this lawsuit, the very first of its kind in Florida. I always appreciate when everyone gives up their time to serve in jury duty, but given what we have going on right now, on behalf of the entire legal community, we really do and truly thank you. This is a new and unique process, and this is the first time for all of us going through this. Usually each of you would be sitting right in front of me, within just a few feet, but we play the hands that we're dealt, and thus we're here in this particular setting. Certainly not my intention to pry in any way, shape, or form. It's just our way of essentially seeing if you're a proper fit for this case. And since I'll be asking many questions of you, I think it's always appropriate to start with a little bit of an icebreaker. As I said, my name is Brandon Wass. I work for the law firm of Cole, Scott, and Cassane in Miami. Lived here my entire life, third generation Miami, and then I have 2 kids who would be the 4th generation. Not too hard. It's similar to what I'll ask of you today, to share a little bit about each and every one of yourselves. I know I got to spend a little bit of time with each of you last week. Most of you were asked questions, some of you not so much. By a show of hands, everyone here today, will anyone hold it against me and my client in particular if I don't necessarily ask as many questions of you as the person in the box next to you? Anyone feel that I have to ask the same amount of questions to each and every one of you to be fair to you in this case? I didn't think so. I just wanted to make sure. As Mr. Dixon said a few moments ago, obviously we had a lot of time to think about everything over the weekend. Has anyone else over the weekend developed any concerns that they would like to share with us with regard to performing civic duties and showing up tomorrow potentially if you're asked to do so? Anyone else? I see Mr. Balela, juror number 3. And is there anyone? Mr. Balela, what are your concerns in particular?
Is it possible to go into a private room?
If the judge obliges, absolutely. I have no problem with it, but I would defer to the court.
Right, so let's see if we could save the private room matters to the end, and then we can just do one by one.
Okay.
If anybody else. And also Mr. Diaz had his hand raised.
Juror 53.
Yes, Judge, I would like to, if I can, I talk to you in private.
Okay.
We'll be sure to come back to the both of you at the end to address any concerns that you guys may have, and I appreciate you guys letting me know that. My client in this case is obviously an insurance company. I know a lot of people have very strong opinions about insurance companies, and I'd like to go through with each and every one of you and briefly in this exercise and ask you what one word comes to each of you, first thing that pops into your mind when you hear insurance company. Ms. Salcinas, juror number 29, since you're in the upper left-hand corner of my screen, I'll start with you first.
Well, when I think of an insurance company, I think of somebody like if something were to happen to you, they're gonna be there to aid and to help you.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez, if you could share the one word that pops into your mind when you hear the words insurance company.
Maybe not one word, but I think of a safety net.
2 words, good enough. Thank you. Mr. Quiroga.
I believe it's a backup plan. It's a backup plan.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dixon. Mr. Dixon, if you could unmute yourself and share with us, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what the first thing pops up into your mind when you hear insurance companies.
Security.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz?
Security too.
How about you, Ms. Herrera? Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Okay, in one word, I can say that I can help you.
And as brief as possible.
Sorry?
As briefly as possible.
Just ask the question again, Mr. Was.
First thing that pops into your mind when you hear the phrase insurance company.
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
The first thing that pops into your mind when you hear insurance company.
Okay, they can help.
Okay, Mr. Valdez.
Hello, I'm sorry.
That's good. Thank you, Ms. Herrera. I appreciate it. Mr. Valdez.
Good morning. I think that this institution that brings some service in case that somebody or some other institution need it.
Thank you. And Ms. Levy. Ms. Levy, if you'd like to share your thoughts.
Sure.
I think you remuted yourself. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Truthfully, I think of high premiums. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Understood. And that's the reason why I ask questions. I'd like to know what each of you think about it. Thank you. And Ms. Preston.
Protection.
Good morning and thank you. Ms. Coleman?
Don't have one word, but I think of it as a hedge against risk.
Thank you so much for your input. Mr. Tellis?
The first word that comes to my mind is expensive.
Understood. And thank you for your response. Ms. Brown?
Emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And Mr. Nemec?
Let me interrupt for just a moment. I'm getting a message that the court reporter is having trouble hearing us. So everybody try to speak a little harder with your voice and to try to enunciate, because she needs to take a record, and it's challenging in a normal environment, much more like this. Go ahead, Mr. Wass. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Nemec?
I concur with Mr. Tellis. I was going to say expensive.
Thank you, Mr. Nemec. Ms. Sullivan?
Security.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I appreciate that. Mr. Roa?
I'd say coverage.
Thank you, Mr. Roa. Ms. Hernandez, good morning.
Morning, assurance.
Thank you. And Ms. Grossman?
A necessary protection.
Thank you, Ms. Grossman. And Ms. Bautista?
Sorry, I was on mute. Expensive as well. That's the first thing came to my mind when I heard her.
Thank you. And Mr. Balela, last but not least.
Protection.
Thank you. A few of you discussed the fact that insurance is expensive. Obviously, there are expenses associated with purchasing insurance. Ms. Bautista, for example, expensive. Would you say that it's worth the money that you put into it generally? Not worth the money? Somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between.
Mr. Nemec, how about you?
You wanted me to elaborate a little bit, or you just need?
That's okay.
Okay.
That's good. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Nemec, you mentioned that it's expensive as well, and I believe the other day you mentioned that you like to shop around, get the most competitive rates. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Have you found in the past that for the expenses that you've paid out that it's been worthwhile, or the opposite?
The insurance is the house. The insurance always gets more money than I get back. The only good experience I've had with insurance is my mother's health insurance, because she has Medicare. She's never had to pay anything.
So with the exception of that one good experience that your mother has experienced, you would tend to say that all of your other experiences are negative then?
It's not necessarily negative. It's just if you look at the net gain over time, the amount of money I've paid in premium is way higher than the amount of money I've ever benefited from the insurance.
Understood. Thank you. Mr. Tellis, you mentioned that it was expensive too. Do you believe you get your money's worth when you pay for insurance?
Yes, I believe I do get my money's worth.
Okay. Thank you. This case is about alleged property damage to Ms. Corchero, Mr. Vega's home, sustained in the course of Hurricane Irma. The policy in this case, as the court will advise you, is a contract. Do any of you have any difficulty understanding the concept of both sides having duties and obligations under a contract? No show of hands? Just because the insurance company here is who I represent, do any of you believe that they have any less of an obligation to live up to their end of the bargain just because they are an insurance company by even 0.1%? Anyone believe that just because they're an insurance company that they have less of an obligation to live up to their end of the bargain? Anyone feel that way? Everyone agree that America is a great country? I think everyone agrees that. I think America is a great country because we're free to disagree. That's okay. Everyone here comfortable about the notion with disagreeing with me or Ms. Corchero or Mr. Vega if they feel that's appropriate? Anyone have any issues feeling that it's okay to disagree as we sit here today? Okay. Anyone here believe in the notion that insurance companies are just out to make a buck? Anyone feel strongly about that? Okay. Anyone here feel it's a waste of money? Any of you since last week, since we've chatted, realize, besides Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. Nemec, anyone realize that they actually carry insurance with People's Trust? Did anyone discover that over the weekend? Anyone here place my client at any disadvantage whatsoever, even by 0.001%, just because my client is the insurance company? Anyone? Ms. Coleman, how about you? No? Okay. Mr. Quiroga, you place my client at any disadvantage? The homeowner's at a head start?
Negative.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Negative.
Okay. No. Anyone else here have that notion in their mind that my client starts out at any disadvantage, whether it's 1 foot behind, 1 inch behind, anything like that? Does anyone feel that just because someone doesn't ask as many questions as the other side of a particular witness that they necessarily have something to hide? Anyone believe that? For example, if I ask less questions of you, Ms. Sullivan, than my counterpart, do you believe that I have something to hide necessarily because I don't ask as many questions?
No.
Okay. Anyone else feel similarly about that? The judge has instructed you previously about waiting until all of the information is out. We have any book readers here? Anyone like to read books? Ms. Brown, I see you raising your hand. Have you ever found yourself guilty of judging a book by their cover?
Of course.
Okay. Got into the book, decided that it wasn't as good as you thought it would be?
And the other way around, yes.
Okay. Anyone else feel that they've been disappointed by determining which book to pick out by looking at its cover? Anyone like to look into the substance of what they're about to read before they pick out a book? Everyone? Okay. How many here have homeowners insurance by a show of hands? Ms. Sullivan, I see you raising your hand. Ms. Bautista, I see you raising your hand. Everyone keep your hands raised. Herrera, I see you raising your hand. Gonzalez. How about the rest of you rent? Which of the renters here actually maintain renter's insurance by a show of hands? Ms. Preston, I see you raising your hand. If I can ask about that for a moment.
I'm sorry, lawyer. The other question that if I'm owner, I have insurance.
Yes. Do you have homeowners insurance?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Preston, you said that you maintain renter's insurance. Is that correct?
Yes, I live in a family property, so they have the rental insurance on the property that I live in.
Do you know, let me ask you this, did you read a copy of your renter's policy?
No, I don't have any of the information.
Okay, do you have any idea about what the rental policy might cover?
I know it does cover like some of the outside, something about the outside. It covers the roof because recently we were going to get the roof done. So I know it does cover something with the roof. I don't know all the things that it covers though. So anytime we need something done, we just ask, okay, does.
Understand, thank you. Does anyone else have a renter's insurance policy on our panel today? Looking for a show of hands. See no other hands.
Mr. Walls, Ms. Grossman has her hand.
Ms. Grossman, you raise your hand for renter's insurance?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever read your policy?
Yes.
Knows what type of things that it covers?
Personal belongings mainly. I have a jewelry and a computer and a electronics writer, but only my personal belongings.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Balela, I know you mentioned before that you sold your home recently. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're renting currently?
No, so it's not that I was renting. I might have misspoken last time. We live in an apartment that my wife owns, so everything's under her name. So the renter's insurance, I'm sorry, the homeowner's insurance is under her name. But no, we've owned this property for over 11 years.
Okay, and the property that you currently stay in, while not your personal home, is insured with a homeowner's policy?
Yes, and it is my it's my home, but it's under my wife's name.
Understood.
Yeah.
How many of you tend to skim such documents as an insurance policy as opposed to reading them with a fine tooth comb? Ms. Gonzalez,
No,
have you read it at all?
probably like the major things that it covers.
Okay.
Mr. Wass, Ms. Brown had her hand up to it.
Ms. Brown, what would you like to share with us?
You just asked if we skim them. I probably the first time read it over, and then every year when you renew, do.
Okay. Anyone else have a tendency to read the policy from cover to cover?
Mr. Wass, Mr. Diaz had his hand up as well.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate you advising me. It's hard to look at all the boxes at the same time. Mr. Diaz, what would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I don't read the policies. My wife is the one who does everything.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you. Did I miss any other hands?
Yes, Ms. Bautista.
Ms. Bautista, how much of your insurance policy do you read?
Yes, well, the first time I read it all, I'm a teacher and I read details. I would say every time I have to renew, I read it over, especially the major part, the little lines, because I mentioned last time we met Thursday, I had insurance, which people trust before, and I never had any problem. I was just, kind of receive a letter. I think it was within a month because I didn't have experience. That was my first time when I was first time home buyer. And I received a letter that I was not going to be renew the policy, not particular reason. So I had to shop online and ask advice for friends and family to find a new home insurance. So I learned I'm going to read everything. That's my personality, period. But with insurance, not just home insurance, I'd insure everything. I take my time and I read it all.
Okay. You mentioned a moment ago that you had received a letter from People's Trust, and you mentioned that it was a letter stating that they would not renew your policy. Did I understand that correct?
Yes. I'm not sure exactly. I'm trying to be as honest as possible. If I get it from, I do absolutely remember getting the letter, but I don't know if I was informed first. My home learner lender, I'm telling you need to look and shopping around because your policy is not going to be renewed. And I can't record exactly if I received the letter first or they let me know because I'm always checking. And then I say, okay, it's time for me to look around and look. But I really didn't understand because I think I was only 2 years that I had it. And I say, okay, but I didn't remember a specific reason why why they're not going to renew my policy. They were making changes. But I have a new policy and my personality make me read everything before I sign. So that's just how I am.
Understand, and thank you for sharing that with us. Do you recall when you received that letter from People's Trust, how that made you feel?
Well, nervous, I'll be honest, because that was my second time. The first time homeowner, and the first time was so easy because my realtor find me an insurance and this, and you as a new owner, I didn't know anything about it. So I find myself, okay, I told myself I need to learn about just not home learner, the lender, the insurance, the tax. So I started learning, but I was concerned, I was confused. Okay, what do I do? Because I understand that I need an insurance. So, and then I find a way, and now I'm okay with the home insurance, any type of insurance concerned to my house.
You mentioned feeling nervous when you got the letter. Did you ever make any calls to find out why that was happening?
Yes, I did call. First, I called one of my friends and they said, call the insurance. And I called the lender, honestly. And they said, it's so many reasons maybe why they're not renewing, they making changing. I didn't remember, honestly, I don't remember what was the reason. If they were just have too many people, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember why, but I do remember calling and know that I'm no longer going to be, part of people trust. I don't know if they were going through changes or they changed. I don't really remember. So I'm gonna be honest with you. But I know it was not anything I did wrong because I have impact doors, impact windows in my house. I have the alarm video. I try to insure my house even more so my policy reduce, or going down. But for some reason that I can't remember, I was not going to be part of it. But they did let me know. I will remember maybe recorded like at least 30 days that I wasn't going to be renewing my policy with them.
Did you have any problems finding a policy after you were advised of that non-renewal?
Not problem. Basically, I didn't have any experience. So as I purchased the house, I thought it was going to be like a long run, as long as, I pay and I do everything I have to do. So, and this is when I start find out that no, they cannot just renew or accept you, and you need to just look for another insurance policy. And I consider myself a fast learner, so I just take action. I'm a go-getter, so I just say, okay, what is it that I gotta do? And then I did it.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Trying to recall who may have had their hands up. I think Mr. Balela, you had your hand up. Did I already speak to you about these same issues?
No. Just to say that I don't think I've ever recalled reading any insurance documents in detail. When I purchased my home, I just went by whatever was needed, the basic coverage, just to make sure that I could get a loan. So I would tell you that no, I've skimmed through insurance policies in the past.
How many of you, by a show of hands, have had a claim with regard to Hurricane Irma? Meaning you sustained damage to your home and you made a claim as a result of the damage that was sustained. Mr. Diaz, noting you're raising your hand. Anyone else? All right. Mr. Diaz, can you tell us a little bit about that? What happened to your home? You're on mute, sir.
Like we talked on Friday, that I had I don't know if it was Irma, or I don't know what. There's too many hurricanes. I don't remember the names, but we had to hire a polio adjuster for some damages, my roof. And I think the polio adjuster hired a lawyer or something like that because they don't want to pay for the roof.
Did that claim end up resolving to your satisfaction or no?
Yes, after that, we didn't have to go to the court and everything.
But you had to hire a public adjuster and or a lawyer to get to where you wanted to be?
Yeah, the polio adjuster hired the lawyer. We didn't. They did everything for us.
Do you recall who the public adjuster and or lawyer were?
And no, I don't recall. That's my wife. She's the one who does all the stuff from the house and everything. I don't read the policies. I don't get into that. She's the call. She calls. She calls the agent. She calls everything. She does everything.
Now, with regard to the claim, do you recall whether it was initially covered or denied?
No, they want to pay, but it wasn't enough.
Okay, so they ended up affording a coverage. They just didn't afford as much as you would have wanted at first.
Right, it wasn't enough to pay the whole roof.
How did you feel about the process in general, from the time that you realized you had to make a claim to how it ended up resolving. How did you feel through the process, if you could share with us?
And like I said, I mean, we have to hire a public adjuster, and we gotta wait. We wait, and after they resolve it, I mean, what can we do? You know, we have to wait then.
I know we here in South Florida have had a lot of experience with hurricanes over the years. Has anyone ever made any claims? I know, Ms. Sullivan, I believe you told us about your Hurricane Andrew claim, for instance, the other day. Had Andrew and Wilma and Katrina over the years. Has anyone made a claim in relation to any of those other storms other than Hurricane Irma that they have a recollection of? Mr. Quiroga, I see you raising your hand. I'll come to you in a moment.
Actually,
right,
my family did a claim under our roof on the last hurricane. I'm not sure whose company was it, but I know they work with the lawyers and they're resolving this issue.
You say that last part again? You said you mentioned something about a lawyer.
Yes, with the lawyer, they were able to resolve in the issue.
Okay, so you had to hire a lawyer to resolve the issue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said it was with regard to Hurricane Irma, is that right?
Correct.
Was that something that your family primarily dealt with rather than you?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any involvement in the process?
No, sir.
No statements provided, anything like that?
Not that I know. My family do everything. So
okay.
I don't.
How did your family feel about the process, if they ever shared any thoughts with you about it?
Yes, they get very tiredness because the process been very long since
they shared their frustrations with you about that?
Yes.
Anything else that your family shared with you regarding the claims process that you recall?
No, sir.
Anyone else have any claims with regard to hurricanes in the past other than through Hurricane Irma? Not sure if I saw any other shows of hands.
Mr. Nemec has.
Okay. Yeah, the last time we had to make any kind of homeowner's claim was for Andrew. And I really wasn't that much involved with it because I wasn't living in the state. I was living in Maryland at the time. But my mother had the property at that time.
Understood. Thank you. Anyone else recall a particular storm claim? How about a non-storm claim? Anyone have any plumbing issues? Unfortunately, a fire, anything like that? Let me take down a show of hands. I see Ms. Preston holding up her hand. Mr. Balela, I see you raising your hand. Mr. Nemec, Ms. Brown. Did I get everyone else? Mr. Tellis. Scrolling through the squares. Ms. Grossman. Ms. Grossman, what was your particular claim about?
You're muted, ma'am.
I believe you're on mute.
It was a current claim only a few months ago. The current condominium that I live in, we had one of the fire safety valves malfunction and it was water damage.
Did you have to make a claim yourself, or was it the association that kind of
It
made
was the association and the unit owner.
What kind of damage was sustained to your unit?
All water damage and some of my furniture.
And how did that claim end up, if you can share with us?
Well, it's still going on between the owner and the condo association because the condo only covered so much. I guess they bring the unit back to its original condition, but then the owner has to replace the baseboards and the doors and everything like that that had water damage.
Okay. And did you ever turn that into your, I believe your renter's policy you mentioned?
No, not at all.
Do you have any particular feelings one way or the other with regard to how that claim proceeded?
No, just that I think the building is currently, it happened in more than one unit, so they're trying to do something with the developer. You know, they're trying to process it through the developer to have them replaced and have them responsible for it.
Anything make you particularly unhappy about the process?
No, just the time it takes, and also, you know, just the disruption while they clean out the water and have the fans going for a week. And
Understood. Thank you. Mr. Tellis, I think you raised your hand.
Yes.
What particular claim did you experience in the past?
It was a workman's compensation claim where I was working for a specific automotive company, and I was struck by a vehicle on the property. And when I put in the workman's comp claim, come to find out that the company that I was working for, that they never renewed their policy about for the workman's compensation claims and stuff. So I ended up hiring a lawyer to take care of the situation for me.
Any particular feelings you developed with relation to any of the insurance companies that you dealt with in the course of that workers' comp claim?
No.
Thank you for volunteering that. Ms. Brown, I believe you had your hand up with regard to a prior claim. What did that one in particular involve?
We moved into an older house and the pipes weren't great, so we had a leak early on. That was probably, I'm sorry, 12 or 15 years ago.
Okay. Any particular recollections of your dealings with the insurance company that you recall as you sit here today?
I remember the adjuster trying to help us to find a good plumber to solve it, so I think they were helpful.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Ms. Preston, I believe you had your hand up previously as well. The claim that you were involved in, if you could share some background on that.
Sure. My husband and I, we owned a home back in Virginia. We had a claim that we submitted. It was probably about 10 to 15 years ago. We had some water damage, I believe. Had some, we had to get the floor redone, so we submitted a claim, and it was fixed. It was no issues. In regards to the claim, it was no issues.
You recall any particular pleasure, displeasure with regard to the manner in which you were treated by the insurance company?
Oh, it was a smooth process. We submitted the claim, and you know, it wasn't a long or grueling process. I mean, it was an easy process for us.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
If I use the phrase like, kind, and quality, does anyone have any particular thoughts when I use that phrase in terms of what it means? Anyone by a show of hands have any thoughts about what the phrase like, kind, and quality means? Mr. Roa, if I could ask you a couple of questions about that. If you bargain for $1 and I give you 4 quarters, seems fair, right?
Sure.
Okay, no issue with that. Now, if you bargain for $1 and I give you 4 quarters and you come back and saying, I want additional dime, would you feel like that would be appropriate?
I don't know.
I mean, I know my example is overly simplistic, and how about if I change it to a penny? You think that would be a big deal if someone tried to ask you for $1 and a penny if you had only bargained for $1?
Me personally, I wouldn't see a problem with the penny.
Anyone else, by show of hands, feel similarly to Mr. Roa that just a penny in that particular equation is just not that big of a deal? So the rest of you then feel the opposite, that it would be a big deal if it turned out in that fashion.
It's not a big deal. We're just setting a precedent that you could take it in a lot of different ways. So $1 is $1. Then stay with that.
Okay. Mr. Valdez, how do you feel about that? If you bargain for $1 and I ask for $1 and a penny, you think that's a big deal or not too big of a deal?
I think so, because you are asking for more.
Okay.
I do have a concern because $1, why you to ask for $1 and a penny? I'm not trying to say penny is a big deal, but it's just the fact that you're not being fair. If it's $1, it should be 4 quarters, should be $1, should be 10 dimes, but why you gotta ask for an extra penny? If you're not investing and you just bargain it's $1, you should just get $1. That's my personal opinion.
Understand. Anyone else have any strong feelings one way or the other? Whether when I say $1, it should mean $1, or if I say $1 and it's $1 and a penny, whether that's not too big of a deal? Anyone have any particular thoughts one way or the other about that? Ms. Levy, how about you?
Well, I just feel that it's right. You make a deal, $1 is $1. But if you've ended up having to fight for 2 weeks to get your $1, then your time also had value that wasn't put into it.
Thank you. Does anyone else feel similarly to Ms. Levy that perhaps in my hypothetical that time value may be worth that additional penny?
Yeah, I agree. Time is money as well. So over $1 or any particular amount, if you have to struggle for a couple of weeks or long period of time, you might as well, I don't know, consider how much time are you losing, because time is also money.
Ms. Hernandez, I haven't heard much from you. Do you have any particular thoughts on that subject?
I actually think the same as Ms. Levi and the one that just spoke.
Thank you. Ms. Herrera, how about you?
Okay, yeah, the same. Like $1 is not look like a big deal, but depending on the time they take it to fix that problem to be equal. So, and the same like Ms. Levy said.
Anyone have any construction experience in their past employment, whether it be personally or their spouse or in their with their family? Ms. Levy, I see you raising your hand.
My husband was a contractor, and then he started making doors and door installations, but he's a woodworker, carpenter. He can do plumbing, he can do electric, but he's licensed in New York, not here really, so.
Understood. By happenstance of him having that experience, has he ever shared any of that knowledge with you to where you've become, I guess, perhaps more educated than the average layperson on construction issues?
not big construction issues. I know the names of tools that most of my lady friends wouldn't know.
Fair enough.
But you know, some terminology that other people wouldn't know. But would I actually be? I'm 5'0", 105 pounds, so I don't do a lot of physical work on my own.
No physical labor. I understand. I understand. Anyone else have any contractors, carpenters, roofers, plumbers, anything like that in their family or in their past work experience?
Juror number 2.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, my husband, he does construction. He builds roads and tennis courts.
I recall you sharing that with us the other day. Has he imparted any of that knowledge upon you in terms of now you feel that you have a little bit more knowledge and experience than the average layperson on construction issues?
Probably like maybe 5% more.
Understood.
About it.
How many of you believe that an insurance company is responsible through securing a particular policy for maintenance issues, general maintenance? And I'll give you an example about that in a minute. Like for instance, a car insurer. You drive around on your tires for 80,000 miles. Eventually the tires go bad and they blow. Does anyone believe that that is the type of thing that a car insurer should pay for? Anyone by a show of hands? Then the opposite would apply. Everyone would think that that's inappropriate for a car insurance company to pay for.
Yeah, unless you have a specific policy for maintenance, then otherwise no.
Okay.
It just goes, it goes into what's the contract say. That's, it depends on what you're paying for.
Understood.
Mr. Was, 14 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Anyone else feel like the car insurance company in my hypotheticals should pay for the tires? No show of hands. I asked a question earlier about whether anyone feels that insurance companies are just out to make a buck. Is there anyone by a show of hands that believes that insurance companies are out to make money or profit and nothing else? Anyone feel that particular way? No hands. Anyone here have any particular religious beliefs that would make them uncomfortable with judging another person, whether for their credibility or for any reason? Anyone have any particular problems with that? No hands? The judge also instructed earlier about how sympathy is to play no role. Does everyone here agree to put your sympathies aside while we're hearing this case? Or on the same hand, does anyone feel that they'd be unable to put their sympathies aside in determining a dispute between an insurance company and a homeowner? No hands? Ms. Gonzalez, said you've lived in Miami-Dade County for more than 10 years. Have you lived here your whole life?
No, I arrived here when I was 15 years old.
Okay. Went to high school here?
Since 10th grade, yes.
Okay, where'd you go to high school?
Sunset High School.
The Knights, huh?
Yes.
And I see that you're a medical record administrator. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what does a medical record administrator do for a living?
I work for the VA headquarters office out of Washington, D.C., and I provide guidance to medical centers, VA medical centers throughout the nation on policies and directives related to medical records, release of information, coding. I used to work at the Miami VA.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon. Good morning. I think you're on mute, sir. Mr. Dixon, you mentioned earlier that you felt uncomfortable with potentially having to serve on the jury in this case. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Mr. Wall, we're going to speak to him about that in private.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Judge. And I believe you previously said that you used to work in banking. Is that right?
Yes, I work as a bank regulator for the state of Florida.
And that work experience was here in South Florida?
Yes, in Miami here.
Okay. I love the accent. Where are you from?
Jamaica.
Oh, beautiful country, beautiful country. How long have you lived in the United States for?
Oh, since 1983, I went to grad school in New York, and then I moved down to Florida in 88.
And we'll be sure to come back to you so we can discuss those issues with you in private, okay?
Sure.
Mr. Valdez, I know we didn't have as much opportunity the other day to ask questions of you. I see that you are employed part-time as a case manager at Coral Gables Hospital.
That's right.
Okay, what do you do as a case manager?
I'm working with like a physician liaison. I try to give the information to the doctor about the patient. I receive the information from the doctor about the patient. And also I try to do the liaison between the doctor and between the patients.
Okay, when you say you're employed part-time, what is your typical schedule?
Most of the time during the weekend.
Weekend. What do you do in particular on the weekdays?
Okay, I'm studying to finish my Voir.
You're finishing your what? I'm sorry.
My Voir in medicine.
Oh, your board.
Yes.
What kind of medicine are you studying?
I was a orthopedic surgeon in my country.
Okay. And where was that?
Pardon?
Where were your medical studies?
In Havana, Cuba.
Thank you for that background.
You're welcome.
And Ms. Levy, I know that you were one of the lucky ones that didn't have a lot of questions posed to her the other day. Just a couple of brief questions. On your questionnaire, it says you're not currently employed. Is that right?
I mean, I'm a mother of 3 kids, so I'm working all the time, but no one pays me for that.
That's more than a full-time job.
Exactly.
How old are your kids? I see 17, 16, and 12. Is that right?
Yes. But now that they're home full time.
Now it is a full-time job. Was there a particular area of employment that you were employed in prior to your children?
I studied nutrition and dietetics, and I worked as holistic nutrition, very involved in alternative medicine and food allergies, balancing. But I'm also pretty much a full-time bookkeeper of all of my family finances and properties and things like that as well. So I do a lot of computer bookkeeping work, but it's personal, not external.
Understood. And thank you for that background. Your Honor, could I have 2 minutes just to consult with my client to see if there's any questions they'd like me to ask?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Members of the jury, what we're going to do is we're going to question the 3 lawyers in the private room. And then I'm going to give the lawyers a comfort break. So during the time that we are questioning in the private room, I need Mr. Dixon, Mr. Balela, and Mr. Diaz to stand by. Everyone else can take a comfort break if they want, but give me just a second. Let's see if Mr. Was has any additional questions. You know, in a traditional setting, Mr. Was would be able to turn to his trial partner on the side, combine their notes together, and then ask any follow-up questions. But in this scenario, he's socially distancing himself in the office. So he's on the phone speaking to his trial partner. It's, we all have to get used to doing things a little differently now. But we're getting the job done. By the way, Ms. Sullivan, when I took attendance, did I call your name or did I skip you? I called your name? Yeah, okay, good. See how I'm good at reading lips? That's a skill that I'm always gonna have after this COVID. I can look at people from far away and know what they're saying.
Judge, I don't have any further questions at this time. Did you want to do the private now or at the end of Mr. Baldwin's questioning?
No, let's do them now. Let's do them. So I need jurors, Mr. Dixon, Mr. Balela, and Mr. Diaz to stand by. And everyone else, if you want to take like a 4-minute break, you can do that. Stretch your legs, grab something to drink, use the restroom if you like. Okay, so Mr. Dixon, this is going to be a little tricky. We're going to go into a private room. So I'm not sure how to do that. Where's Yanni? Yanni, can you take Mr. Dixon to a private room?
Yes.
Oh,
So he's right in a private room. I'm moving Brandon, you, Matthew, and Sharon now.
Thank you.
Okay, Judge, so you've already been assigned to the breakout room. Mr. Dixon, you can go ahead and click on the breakout room button and meeting control in the bottom.
I see it.
Breakout room 5.
Thank you.
Yanni, could you put a timer? Thank you. All right, we should be starting shortly. So everybody could just actually get back on their chairs.
Robert, the judge mentioned taking 4 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, members of the jury and Robert,
Yes.
given the two lawyers a 4-minute bathroom break, they actually have 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. And then we're going to resume with Mr. Baldwin asking questions. And Yanni is working with Mr. Diaz to get him back in the main room.
Okay.
So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to resume in 3 minutes and 17 seconds if anybody else wants to walk around a little bit. 3 minutes, 10 seconds. Bye.
So guys, actually you guys got 3 minutes if you guys want to stretch your legs or, you know, get a bite of something.
Okay, I think we're just waiting for a couple of jurors. Oh, there's Ms. Grossman's hand. There you are. And Ms. Herrera, we're just waiting for her. Mr. Diaz, we're waiting for him.
Mr. Diaz is back.
Robert, is everyone back?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, great. Mr. Baldwin, you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Thank you, everyone. I thank you again, like Mr. Wass and Judge Butchko has echoed, for everyone being here and participating in this process. We recognize not only that it's an obligation, but that it's a unique obligation, especially given that there are many people watching us that we are strangers to us. As an aside, and to give you a little bit about myself, when I told my 7-year-old daughter, who's currently into TikTok videos, that I would be on YouTube Live, she was very jealous. And after she asked me a couple more questions, as she's wanting to do, she found out that I wouldn't be singing, I wouldn't be dancing, and she just rolled her eyes and walked away and said, well, nobody's going to watch then. So I'm not going to sing, I'm not going to dance, but I do have some important questions for you.
That's great.
Start by first saying, as Mr. Wass said, lawyers are going to disagree. That's why we're here. You've heard some names, you've heard some terminology, and I want to talk about that. First is plaintiff. Plaintiff, as the judge said, is the one who brought the lawsuit. So my clients are the homeowners in this case. They have a dispute with an insurance company, Mr. Wass's client. So Mr. Wass represents the insurance company, I represent the individual homeowners. There's a dispute between the parties. When parties can't resolve disputes, one of the ways we resolve those disputes in a civil society is, unfortunately, and sometimes by filing a lawsuit. And that's why we need you. You have the role as the jury to find the facts that we can't disagree on. So for example, if someone said there was a car accident and there were witnesses that said, hey, I saw him, he took the light, it was stale red. And another witness said, no, I saw him take the light and it was green. You as jurors would have to find the fact. Who do you believe? Is there any other evidence to say that one person is telling the truth versus the other? So that's your job. The parties have a dispute. Mr. Wass's client believes that my clients didn't let them, for example, repair their home. My clients disagree and say, not only did we let you, but we think that you have harmed us. So to go back to Mr. Wass's example, this is not a case about who's owed $1. This is, or that they had a contract for $1. This is about whether or not there was someone owes someone more and whether or not there ever was an agreement about that dollar in the first place. So let me start with juror number 2, Ms. Gonzalez. You indicated that you currently are a People's Trust insured. Do you think that you would have any reluctance to find against People's Trust if you were selected as a juror in this case, given the fact that you have People's Trust as your own insurance company? Or do you think that it may be enlightening to you to see how this particular company works in the real world?
I don't think I have any reluctance, and I guess, yes, I would like to see that.
Okay. Do you have any feelings about the civil justice system generally? Have you ever had to hire a lawyer for any reason?
No, I've never had to hire a lawyer.
Okay. And you indicated you had not had any prior claims, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Acosta. I'm sorry, Ms. Brown, you indicated that you work for Alview Systems. What kind of work do they do generally?
Financial, fund accounting, credit accounting, different kinds of accounting.
Okay. Any of your work, do you work on any insurance company clients?
Only if they have investments.
So your primary clients would be the larger accounting firms or the investment funds?
Right. So like a pension fund or something like that.
Okay. Do you have any, based on the experience where you had some family members who were injured, is there anything about that experience that gave you any impressions about the civil justice system that you think may be relevant to whether or not you can sit as a juror in this case?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did the family or the people that were injured have to hire counsel to help them with that situation? If you know.
I don't recall.
Okay. Was it many years ago?
Yes.
Okay. Was anyone involved permanently injured?
I'm not sure what injury. If it's a car accident that my brother and sister-in-law were in, then like one of them had her spleen removed, so he could get sick again. The other one had some broken bones and hardware put in, so I don't know what permanent is.
Sure. Well, I think we would all agree if there was something that serious to us that we would consider it permanent or in any event. Is anything about that experience? Well, let me phrase it a different way. Do you have any, apart from what they told you, did you have any involvement in the case whatsoever?
So my first degree is physical therapy, so I did some physical therapy for my sister-in-law.
Fair enough. I'm sure she was good. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Juror number 19, Ms. Sullivan. Your former spouse, how was he employed? Or what was his last job, if any?
He is a technician, or a nuclear med technician.
Okay. And ma'am, you indicated before you had the Andrew claim and had some significant damage, but you did not have to hire a public adjuster or attorney, is that correct?
That's correct.
Juror number 20, Ms. Herrera, your spouse's profession or last employment?
He have the own company, the pest control company.
Pest control?
Yes, sir.
That's his own company?
Yes.
And you indicated on our last session last year, you've been a homeowner approximately 16 years, but you've never had to file a claim or make any significant repairs. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there anything that we talked about this morning that made you change your opinion about anything that we discussed?
I can hear you.
Sure. Is there anything that Mr. Was, the judge, or myself have discussed this morning that has changed your opinion or make you think of anything about whether or not you should or shouldn't be a juror on this case?
No, sir.
Let me just ask that question generally to the panel. Is there anything that we've discussed today that we haven't already discussed in private with those certain individuals that has made anyone change their opinion about anything that we've discussed or made them realize a concern that they hadn't yet brought to our attention? Just show of hands if any. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thank you. Mr. Valer, you're number 23. The claim that you had that you believed with Citizens, was that also on the wife's property or was that a separate property?
No, that's a separate property. That's the property that we sold about a year ago.
Okay.
And that property was under my name.
Okay. At the time it was sold, that was a year ago, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Juror number 26, Ms. Hernandez. Your child's father, his profession, or his last employment? Ms. Hernandez?
Yes,
Hi. I was just asking a question. Your children's father, what was his last employment or his profession?
he's self-employed. He does different type of jobs.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
He'll clean like driveways or like gardening and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. How long have you been working at Signature?
Around a little bit over 3 months.
Okay, and prior to that, where were you working?
I wasn't working. I was going on college.
Okay, great. And taking care of the 3 kids.
Yes.
Were you able to go to school during full time, or did you do a part-time program, or how did it work?
Full time.
Thank you, ma'am. Juror number 35, Valdez. You indicated, sir, that you're studying for your board.
Yes, that's correct.
And your spouse is actually a doctor?
Yes, yeah. Here, no, I mean in my country. Here I'm nurse.
Sure. Okay. Are you studying part-time and working full-time? I'm sorry, part-time and studying part-time?
I study by myself, okay? I'm working part-time.
And when do you plan on taking your boards?
I don't know, because now everything is closed due to the coronavirus. So hopefully soon.
Except unfortunately for jury selection, right? In any of your previous employers, have you ever supervised any other individuals?
Before I work in Baptist Health System, before of that in Lyon Medical Center.
And what were your titles at Baptist and Lyon?
Like a case manager too.
Okay. And for the case manager, are you working one-on-one with the patients and their families, or do you supervise other case managers?
No, I'm working sometimes with the patient, sometimes with the doctor, and I send information to the medical insurance, to the primary physician of the patient, depending of the necessity of the patient, you know. Sometimes we have to send information to the different facility like ALF, SNF, something like that.
Okay. Do you ever supervise other employees?
Me? No.
Yeah. Okay. And you indicated, sir, that you had never had any kind of insurance related.
No.
Have you ever had a need to hire an attorney for any civil reason?
No.
Have you formed any impressions about the case so far?
No.
Do you have any experience in repairing your own home?
No, I'm not the homeowner.
What about, do you have any skills in people that have handyman skills able to repair?
Maybe some, not too much.
Okay. Have you ever lived in a place where you had to do any kind of significant repairs?
No.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Ms. Levy, 37. You indicated that you're taking care of a lot of the finances of the family. I imagine that requires you to kind of go back and forth quite a bit with a number of different people at the same time, sometimes.
I do, because we have a couple of rental properties as well. So I'm dealing with electric, gas, water, tax notices, violations, all of that for every single one. So
for the properties,
I want to say my husband and I are on completely different wavelengths. My husband does not like insurance companies. He doesn't believe in them. He thinks they're fraudulent. I, on the other hand, believe that they're there for security and there's a reason. And if there's a claim and you're legitimately in the right, it'll work out the way it's supposed to.
Sure.
So he's just laughing at me. I'm like, well, I would like to know, talking about that it was an insurance claim. That's all I told him. And he's like, oh, they're all fraud companies. I'm like, oh, you would be terrible on this jury. We don't even have homeowners insurance on our house because it's paid in full. And I'm terrified of that, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and certainly there are high premiums. And that's just a fact of life. But are you saying, just so the record's clear, your opinion is, notwithstanding anything, including your husband would tell you, you're going to evaluate on a case-by-case basis?
Absolutely. I don't agree with him. We fight about that too. So, I think everything needs to be taken at face value of what what's in front of you, what you've agreed on, what you've signed, and that there's a good intention on both ends of the party. That I think intention is also a big part of it.
For any of the properties that you managed, have you ever had any claims denied by an insurance company that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Any lawsuits of any kind related to the properties that you manage, or for the I guess they call it the family responsibility you've undertaken?
In Brooklyn, New York, I would say about maybe 10 years ago, we were still living there at the time, and we just got a notification in the mail that somebody slipped and fell in front of our property, actually, and had injuries and whatnot. There were no witnesses, there were no anything, but our insurance ended up having to pay liability.
Did you form any impressions about that case?
In not the case, just the plaintiff, we didn't know if it really happened or not. There were, he said he slipped and fell in front of our property. Could have happened, couldn't have happened. There was no proof to tell either direction. So that's what insurance is for, I guess.
Do you have any opinions, even if they differ strongly with your husband's, about whether or not that plaintiffs for the majority of the time are like lying in wait or seeking to take advantage of an opportunity like a slip and fall?
Maybe in New York a little more. We have a lot of snow, so people do, take advantage that you can't get out and shovel every drop of ice every second while there's a storm. But in general, no, I think that, hurricane damage happens, and if you have insurance, you're expected to pay for it. I think most things are done in good faith.
Fair enough. Thank you, ma'am. Anything else that we've discussed that made you think differently than anything that you've shared with us previously, Ms. Levy?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, I want to go back to you for a second, juror number 53. You indicated that your case involving roof damage, it was resolved to your satisfaction. Did you have a moment to see over the weekend who your current insurance company is?
Oh, I really don't.
You leave that to your wife?
No, I don't recall what was it.
Okay, let me ask you something. You said that your wife manages those kinds of things. The wife dealt with the public adjuster. Did you even have any interaction at all with the public adjuster in your insurance case?
No.
Okay, did you ever?
How in interaction?
Did you ever speak to him, talk to him about the damage you had?
Oh, yes.
Okay, did you ever
I'm sorry, he came to the house.
And after that, is that when your wife took over the handling of that claim?
Yeah, she knows more than me. I don't read, I don't do nothing about it. She knows about the house, about the billings, all this stuff.
Did you ever have any interaction did the insurance company ever send someone to the house to talk to you about the damage that you recall?
I think an adjuster came, I think, from the insurance, and he checked the roof inside the house. He took pictures.
Okay, is that something you physically observed, or is that something that the public adjuster or your wife told you happened?
No, I was there too.
Okay, and you said it was resolved to your satisfaction, correct?
Yes, finally, I mean, after we hired the adjuster and he hired the lawyer. So after that, we didn't have to go to court and nothing else.
Okay. As in customer service, do you manage other employees?
Customer service?
Yeah. So at your job, do you have to supervise other employees?
No. I'm a regular employee there.
Okay. Prior to working for Costco, where were you last employed?
I've been working for Costco for 24 years.
Oh, wow.
And before that, I was with Dixie.
Okay.
And before that was Little Caesar.
Okay. So you've always been face to face with customers.
Right.
Your 21-year-old child, what is he or she studying?
Michelle, she goes to Miami-Dade Arts.
Have you ever had to hire a lawyer for any reason?
See.
When we spoke last week, you weren't sure, but I wanted to know if anything that we've talked about so far has jogged your memory. Let me make it easy for you. Have you ever been involved in a serious accident where you've been injured in any way?
I had an accident a long time ago, in a car accident.
Okay.
But no, I hired a lawyer, but thanks God nothing major. I went to therapists and all this stuff. I was a long time ago though.
Okay, fair enough. Anything about that experience, your experience with the insurance company, that you think would affect your ability to sit as a juror in this case?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Namek, juror number 55. Good morning, sir.
Yes, hello.
Couple questions. The same question as asked Ms. Gonzalez. Do you think that you would be in any way reluctant to hold People's Trust liable if, for example, my clients proved that People's Trust breached the contract of insurance that they had with them because of the fact that you have People Trust insurance?
Whether I have them or not, it's kind of irrelevant because it's just a matter of what's the contract say and did they uphold their end of the contract. So that's really what you have to look at.
Sure. And I want to make sure that we know exactly and we firm up on what you said before. You indicated before what I think we can all agree. Objectively, what you said is actually 100% true. Unless you've had an insurance claim, the net amount of money that you've paid an insurance company is going to be less than the amount of money they've given you back, right? You basically said there'd be a net loss.
Even if you have a claim, it's going to be a net loss, usually, except maybe in catastrophic event, you might get your money back, but with all the money I've paid in car insurance and they pay me the value of the car at the day after depreciation, so I'm getting nothing compared to what I've paid into my car insurance. And same thing with the house, they're going to factor in depreciation. Oh, your roof is 15 years old, so you're never going to get your money back, especially when I'm paying the 2 months of mortgage payment as my premium.
Sure. Would you agree with me that fact, irrespective of that fact, though, that has nothing to do with your ability to make a decision on the facts of an individual case? For example,
again, that has to do with what's the contract say. So because all that stuff, the depreciation, that's in the contract. So they've already covered themselves by how the contract's written to get they're going to get their money because of how the contract's written.
Can you say with certainty that your opinion, your feelings, or your assessment, your mathematical assessment, that it'll always be a net loss in the absence of a total loss or a catastrophic scenario will not affect your ability to sit as a juror in an insurance case?
No, it wouldn't affect it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We have some general questions of the panel, and just raise your hand if anything I say you think you may agree with, or even if you tend to agree with it. Raise your hand if you think the civil justice system is broken because too many people are taking advantage of the court system. Anybody? Ms. Levy, number 37. Okay. Why do you, and Ms. Batista, anyone else? Ms. Levy, why do you feel that way?
I have to think of how to phrase this. No, I know that not necessarily homeowners insurance, but with car insurance companies, there are people who have minor injuries and they, end up claiming these huge, and because of that, I don't even know if it's the court system that's broken. I think the insurance industry is somewhat broken. That the reason that we have such high premiums is because of a lot of excessive or fraudulent claims in some, and so I'm not sure. Sometimes there are little loopholes where, the word justice means a really big thing, but it seems so unfair for both sides. So I don't know if I would say broken, but I don't think it's always fair.
Fair. Ms. Batista, what did you want to share with us?
I'm sort of kind of agreed in both auto and homeowners, because as a homeowner and also auto policy, sometimes we pay for other people faults. So it's excessive amount they request, as well as sometimes the homeowner insurance and auto insurance so expensive, even if you don't have an accident, even if you're not guilty in an accident. So we all involve too much claim, so they raise the policy for everybody, for homeowners and auto policy. So I agreed. I don't think it's broke. Just agreed I agree. But sometimes we pay the price for other actions.
Let me follow up with you on that point, Ms. Batista. Do you think that the majority of people that have claims or file lawsuits against their insurance company are lying or exaggerating?
Well, I don't say the majority of them.
Okay, Ms.
That
Levy,
would be
you're shaking your head. You as well.
I'm sorry?
I don't think majority. I'd like to think that it's a few, but they make it hard for everyone else.
Right.
Absolutely.
Bad apples are always the one that ruin it for everybody else, right? Sorry, did I cut somebody off? Okay. Does anybody else think that the majority of people that file claims against insurance companies are exaggerating or even lying in wait for something to happen that they can take advantage of? Anybody? Okay. How many of you feel that if if someone really had damage to their home from from a storm, that the insurance company would pay right away as opposed to 3 to 6 months later or a year later? Ms. Levy, you're smiling.
Yeah,
I know you manage
I had
property.
a friend who was displaced from her home almost 2 years while things were in negotiations. So, it sometimes can be excessive. I wish there were riders in the insurance for some kind of temporary agreement while we're trying to figure out the long-term kind of a thing.
So you have personal experience with the fact that just because something takes long, and here we are, in our case, you've heard it's about Irma, and here we are in 2020, the summer of 2020, because something has taken long to resolve one way or the other doesn't necessarily tell you anything about the merits of the case, correct?
Right. And she ended up having an entirely new kitchen, an entirely new, even better than what she originally had sought out for, but she had to live in a hotel for quite a while.
In any of the properties where you've dealt with insurance issues, have you ever had to negotiate with the actual insurance adjusters or the company yourself, Ms. Levy?
No, but I do have one thing I didn't mention. My husband, when we were moving down to Florida, he's tired of a lot of the physical carpentry and construction work. And he actually took a public adjuster's course and passed, but he hasn't followed through with that as a backup career. And part of the reason was that he didn't feel comfortable, quote unquote, being like an ambulance chaser. He didn't want to wait for terrible things to happen to try to be like, oh, good, now's my chance to earn a lot of money. It didn't.
Fair enough. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add on that point? Ms. Herrera, juror number 20. Does any of the work that your husband does, is that any of that related to the insurance work, or you may have heard the term assignment of benefits?
No, he's doing like a pest control on the outside the house. It's like a landscaping, fumigation, spray lawn, something like that.
Does he do any work related to COVID, or is it pure, has he done any work related to COVID and changed his business in any way, or is it still pure pest control?
It's nothing related with COVID.
How long have you been working for South Miami, ma'am?
20 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
As the coordinator, do you supervise other employees?
I don't supervise it. I'm working with coordinator, the imaging records, but I don't supervise any employees.
Okay. Have you ever supervised any other employees?
No, sir. No.
And you've previously served as a juror in a civil case. Anything about that experience, besides the fact that you're sitting here again, that makes you reluctant to participate?
No, the first day they didn't take me. They asked me so many questions about, in that moment, my son have 5 years or 7 years old. So in that moment, it's hard to take care, to find someone to take him. So they didn't take me in that moment.
Okay, so you weren't even actually fit for the whole trial and actually listen to evidence and witness.
Only the first day. I show up the first day.
Second, Ms. Sharon.
I'm sorry, sir, you broke off. If you could please repeat your question.
Sure. Ms. Herrera, I was saying, so is it fair to say that you did not actually serve on the jury and listen to witnesses and testimony?
Only went to the first day, and they was asked so many questions in the court, and after that they didn't take me to be in the case.
So you went through a process like you're going through right now?
No, I didn't have that experience. This is my first experience like that. Many questions.
So we've asked you more questions than you had the first time.
Yeah, I went to the court. We went there, and then they take me to another room. And they ask you some questions if there's any issue to be in the court, or if they have someone have a key. So I have my hands, and then after that they say me, you don't need to be here, be another room. And after that they told me they don't need me. So they didn't ask me so many questions about the case. I didn't know about the case either. So in that moment.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Mr. Quiroga, juror number 27. I want to ask you some follow-up questions about the claim that your family had. You indicated that your family had counsel and they dealt with it. Do you have any other information about the claim or the experience?
No, sir.
Okay, but you knew it's about Irma and it involved the roof being replaced?
Yes, I believe it's on the process.
It's still in the process?
Yes.
Do you know if they have filed a lawsuit?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Have you been involved in that experience in any way, whether it's talking to an adjuster about damage in the home or anything like that?
No, negative.
Okay. Is it in the home that you live in, or is it in a separate home?
It's in the home that I'm living.
Okay. If I said, well, you tell me, have you formed any impressions one way or the other about an insurance company based on your own experience in your family's home?
No, not at all.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Ms. Salcinas, you're number 29. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
You indicated that you weren't a homeowner and hadn't had claims, but we talked a little bit about your family's home. To your recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, the family also hadn't had any claims at the home. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, no, we haven't had any claims or anything like that.
Okay, fair enough. Any significant construction in any kind that took place in the home?
No.
And do you or any of your family members or friends? Do they have any significant experience in the construction industry, replacing roofs, drywall, anything like that?
No, not that I know of.
And I had some indication, I had some notes from Thursday. Did you ever have any supervisory or management roles when you worked at Norwegian?
No, I didn't.
Okay, it was just a receptionist?
Correct. Yeah, I was in charge of booking the rooms for cruising.
Okay. Did you do that job in person or remotely?
No, it was everything was over phone. But it was a building that we all worked together.
You broke up for a second, and I see Sharon waving at me. Can you just repeat it one more time? The question was, did you do your job at Norwegian remotely?
So we all worked in a building together in the corporate office, I believe.
Okay. Anything that we've discussed this morning change your opinions one way or the other about your ability to sit as a juror in this case?
No.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. We'll follow up with the judge shortly. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Let's see what time it is. It's just about 11:44. Let's take a break. Where's Robert?
Where are you, Judge? On the top.
You are. There you are. Folks, let me take a quick break. I'm not going to give you a time period. I just want to speak with the lawyers and the court reporter in a private room just regarding scheduling, and we'll be right with you for further instructions. Normally, if we were in a courtroom now, I would take a lunch break for us and resume at 1 o'clock, but let me talk to them first real quick. So gentlemen, I think that we could just click on Breakout Room.
That is correct, Judge. I've added you to the sidebar.
Okay, thanks so much. That's a sidebar, so we can join a Breakout Room. Thanks so much.
Hey, Yanni,
Yes, Robert.
how could I go to the break room where the judge and the attorneys are?
I'm going to go ahead and assign you to it.
I was muted that whole time. Oh, well. Can you read my lips? All right. So the law requires me to meet with the lawyers in private to select the jury who's going to hear this case. It's going to take about 20 minutes, but it may take a little more. Yanni, our technical person, is going to set the timer at 20 minutes. And please forgive me if it takes a little longer. Then we'll come back and we'll let you know who's going to be on the jury. So I need Albin to come along into the breakout room with me. Albin?
Yes.
The lawyers, our court reporter. And so Yanni is going to set the timer for us, 20 minutes. Okay, jurors? Thanks so much. I'll see you soon.
Hey, Yanni.
Oh, wait.
Judge, I have a message.
Yeah. I need to, okay. Mr., where are you? Mr. Nemec, are my lawyers still here?
Yes, Judge.
Here, Judge.
Okay, and the court reporter. Mr. Nemec, did you want to say something to us?
No, I would prefer to do it on a sidebar.
Privately.
Okay. So Yanni, I didn't know that the jurors could chat with me in private. I thought we were going to disable that.
Okay, Judge. Yes, I'll disable it now.
Okay. So let's go to a private room with Mr. Nemec. Okay. Let's see. Sidebar. Okay.
Judge,
we'll see you in a private room.
There you go. You should be able to go into breakout room 6 and Mr. Nemec will be there.
Just for a few seconds, we should get more direction.
You're muted.
Yeah, I got it. My two lawyers are here. All right, very good. So Mr. Nemec should be coming back as well. Okay, Yanni, go ahead and set the timer for us for 20 minutes and we're gonna go caucus back into the private room myself, the lawyers, and I need the who I don't see anymore, and the court reporter.
Perfect, Judge. So you should be able to now click on that room and click sidebar.
Okay, great.
And Albin is already there waiting for you.
Oh, perfect. Thanks so much. Okay, see you soon, everyone.
Okay. All right, thank you, Yanni. All right, it seems that they're still actually in the private room, so we should be actually, should put a timer. See what happens with that. All right, so we should be starting any moment. So just go to sleep.
Hello, jurors. I think everyone's here, correct, Robert?
That is correct, Judge.
Well,
we're missing Miss Levy.
Oh, we're missing Miss Levy?
Yeah, Miss Levy, actually, we're missing Miss Levy. Let me see if I could get her attention.
Oh, okay.
I'm asking her to unmute.
That. Let me just announce, members of the jury, we have successfully selected a jury to hear this case. If I call your name, that means you are on the jury and you must report to the courthouse tomorrow. So here we go. Listen carefully, please. Juror number 2, Christina Gonzalez. Juror number 10, Brenda Coleman. Juror number 15, Christian Roa. Juror number 19, Andrea Sullivan. Juror number 20, Ingrid Herrera. Juror number 26, Ms. Hernandez. Is it Celeste? Because the first name is cut off. Celeste? Yes, Celeste Hernandez. Juror number 29, Elisa Salcines. Juror number 35, Abel Valdez Diaz. Okay, where's my clerk? Albin, did I recite the names correctly? You're muted. Yes?
Oh. Yeah, that is correct, Judge.
That is correct. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Albin, could you please swear in the jury that's going to hear the case? Members of the jury, the folks who I called your name, I need you to please raise your hand and take an oath as the jury who will hear this case. So Gonzalez, Coleman, Roa, Sullivan, Herrera, Hernandez, Salcines, and Valdez.
Raise your right hand. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that you will well and truly try this issue in the 2 cases on trial, in one which People's Trust Insurance Company is the plaintiff, and you, Sam Crescero and Darian Vega are the defendants? And in the other case, where Usami Crescero and Darian Vega is the plaintiff and People's Trust Insurance Company is the defendant, and a true verdict rendered according to the law and the evidence?
I do.
Please say it, you do.
Okay, very good. Good. Thank you. Please put your hands down. So now addressing the whole panel. Thank you so much for your service and for participating in in this really historic jury selection, for putting up with all the technical issues and all the hiccups along the way. Thank absolutely all of you. So the jurors that are not selected will be receiving an email with a certificate of completion if you need to show that to your employer, or just as a certificate of appreciation from us to keep among your valuables. You're also going to get a survey, I believe, that's important to the circuit. It's very important that you fill that out because we can learn from that. So thank you so much. To the other jurors, you're also going to receive an email, very, very important email. It's going to give you the address of the courthouse, where you are to respond and be there by 8:45 tomorrow morning. We have secured parking for you in the building. So every juror is going to have their own parking. Obviously, we're having lunch for you. The evidence will be there for you, and an employee will meet you and direct you where to go next. So please watch your emails carefully. If you have any questions about what to do, or if you did not get your email, make sure you call Robert. You all have Robert, my bailiff's cell phone number, okay? So I look forward to meeting you all in person. Don't forget tomorrow to bring your mask. And if you happen to not have one, we have a mask available for you in hopefully in the parking lot. So thank you. Do my jurors that are on this case have any questions? No question. Ms. Hernandez?
Yes, I don't think I have Robert's phone number, or is it in the email that you guys send?
Judge, if you give me a minute with the panel, I would love to take all the information from there, especially could double check the contact information and also give them my cell number. If we could
Okay.
actually have a private room or something like that with them.
Okay, so let me excuse the other jurors. The other jurors, if you're not on the case, you're free to sign off. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. It was great working with you. The
Thank you
jurors,
again.
thank you, everyone. The jurors,
Have a good one.
stay with us. The 8 jurors, stay with us. You need to go to a private room because I don't want their contact information broadcast. Okay.
That's correct.
So you'll go into a private room and you can talk to Robert and exchange. He'll give you his cell number and you guys give him your cell number. But Robert, you should have it. So just verify.
I have it, but I just want to double check.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, so Yanni, I would like to leave the jurors with Robert, please. And I would like to go to a private room with the lawyers.
Perfect, Judge. Can I go ahead and stop the live stream?
Oh, Mr. Diaz, yes, stop the live stream, please.